I will withdraw my name as a candidate for Speaker.
Can you withdraw my name from the ballot, please?
Okay. We were very surprised to see both of these individuals withdraw their names.
We are back in the House of Commons today as Parliament slowly starts to wind back up in Ottawa. In order for Parliament to function at all, there needs to be a Speaker of the House. And because Parliament was dissolved, so was the office of Greg Fergus. So before literally anything can happen in Parliament, the House must elect a new Speaker of the House, which happened today. However, an interesting twist happened where the two Conservative candidates intentionally dropped out at the very last minute.
Let's take a look.
I have the honour to inform the House that a communication has been received as follows. The Honourable Greg Fergus, Speaker of the House of Commons. Mr. Speaker, I am commanded to inform you that the Right Honourable Richard Wagner, Chief Justice of Canada, in his capacity as Deputy of the Governor-General, will proceed to the Chamber of the Senate to open the first session of the 45th Parliament of Canada at 8 a.m. on Monday, the 26th of May, 2025. Yours sincerely, Ken McKillop, CD, Secretary to the Governor-General.
Okay, and we're off to the races, as it were, but it probably feels like a turtle moving along. So that was one of the clerks that is in the Speaker's office. He helps the Speaker. He's an unelected official, and he essentially runs the Speaker's office for the Speaker of the House. So what he does when a new government is formed and Parliament is set to open, he rises in the House and informs the House that there's going to be somebody that's going to be visiting them very shortly, and he mentioned who that was. And it's actually going to be a representative from the Senate. And you saw at the end, it says the House is waiting for the ushering of the black rod. Now, what is that? That is essentially somebody coming from the traditional House of Lords or the Senate to inform the House of Commons and the representatives in there, which is the members of Parliament, that they are being summoned to the Senate to hear a speech from the throne. And that will, of course, be happening tomorrow. So the next part of this is the representative ushering in the black rod to inform the House accordingly.
A message from the Right Honourable Deputy of Her Excellency the Governor-General.
Mr. Clerk, a message from the Right Honourable Deputy of Her Excellency the Governor-General. Monsieur le Greffier, un message de très honorable suppliant de Son Excellence la Gouverneure Générale.
Messenger, faites entrer le messager.
Honourable members of the House of Commons, it is the desire of the Right Honourable Deputy of Her Excellency the Governor-General that this Honourable House attend him immediately in the chamber of the Senate.
And so begins the first part of the extended ceremony where a new government takes power. So it's kind of interesting to see this kind of play out, because normally what we see is just questions, answers, debates, and this sort of thing. But this is kind of the historical aspect that's woven into the traditions of the House of Commons, and for us, it's interesting to see this kind of play out in real time.
Yeah, it's really neat to see. I guess you would say the pageantry of it all, like the historical costumes and things like the black rod and the mace, and it's really interesting. It's a reminder of where we came from, how we got here. Right,
and these are traditions that have not changed in over 150 years in the lifetime of our country. So even down to the hats and the garb, as Tanya mentioned. So now that announcement has been made. So even though immediately is tomorrow, there is pressing business that has to take place in the House of Commons. As we mentioned before, literally anything can happen. They have to elect the Speaker. So that is what they are going to be doing for a good portion of today. So let's get to what happens next.
Pursuant to Standing Order 3, I invite Mr. Plamondon, member for Bécancour-Nicolette-Sorel-Alnobac, to take the chair as member presiding over the election of the Speaker. Conformément à l'article 3 du règlement, j'invite Monsieur Plamondon, député de Bécancour-Nicolette-Sorel-Alnobac, à prendre place au fauteuil pour l'élection à la présidence.
So this is Monsieur Louis Plamondon. He is the presiding officer, or often they call him the Dean of the House. And that position is filled by the MP who has been the longest serving in Parliament. So Monsieur Plamondon was elected to the Bloc Party in 1984. So he has been a member of the House of Commons longer than I have even been alive. And it is quite an honor to be the Dean of the House, because that means that your constituents keep re-electing you year after year after year, longer than anybody else in that house, and you're seen almost as like a dean or a father figure for the new MPs in the house, that you are there to guide them and lead them.
Now, why is he getting up? Well, they need somebody who has some sort of elected authority to conduct the election of the Speaker of the House, to ensure that the Speaker is chosen from the people, by the people who actually voted for him, and has to be done from a representative that was elected by the people. So this is why this position falls to the presiding officer, or the Dean of the House. And he's been doing this time after time after time. He was there for Fergus's election. He was there for Rhoda's election, and many others. So he's garnered a lot of respect of everybody in the House, just because of his long service. And he doesn't even need a book at this point, because he's done it so many times.
All members should have received by email last night the list of candidates for the speakership, the list of members who have withdrawn, and the list of members who have ineligible as candidate. This list are also available at the table and on our commons, if members will to cancel them before the vote. West Wellington.
I will withdraw my name as a candidate for Speaker. Thank you.
Regardez donc. Oh.
Député d'Acadie.
Merci beaucoup. A good. A good speaker knows when to keep their speeches short. Can you withdraw my name from the ballot, please?
Okay.
So that was John Nader and Chris D'Entremont. Now, Chris D'Entremont, we were speculating, may be a high probability of becoming speaker this time. And we were very surprised to see both of these individuals withdraw their names. Why? Because now that means there are only Liberal candidates as Speaker of the House.
Right, because the NDP did not put forward any candidates as Speaker.
They can't afford to lose any votes at all.
Right.
But the interesting thing is that this was literally the last possible chance that they would have had to remove their names. Now, whether or not you understood what Mr. Palmadon was saying, the way it works is that by default, every single member of parliament is considered a candidate for the speakership, except for the party leaders and the cabinet and some other people. That's what he was talking about in eligibility. Now, in order to not be considered, you actually have to opt out. You have to declare your intention not to be considered as speaker. So this is where Chris D'Entremont and John Nader stood up and did so just then. So the question is why would they do that?
Well,
now,
indeed.
Over the course of the morning, I've been kind of postulating, and I think I'd figured it out. I had sent a text to somebody, and they gave a cheeky response, so I'm thinking I'm right. So let's consider the playing field here, folks. Right now, the Liberals have 169 seats. The Conservatives have 144. The Bloc have, I believe, 22, and the NDP have 7, and the Green Party has 1. So that gives the Liberal 169 seats, 3 shy of a majority. Now, we're expecting a by-election to take place in Terrebonne. Now, assuming that the Bloc wins, that would then drop the Liberals down to 168 seats. And if they are forced, at which point they're going to be, if they are forced to elect a speaker from their party, they lose a vote on every single vote in the House.
Except for when a tie is met.
Except for when there's a tie.
Yeah.
So that would drop them down to 167 seats. Now, funny enough, if the Bloc win that seat, the Conservatives plus the Bloc equals 167 seats, leaving the Greens and the NDP to be the tiebreakers. Now, remember what we said before, that the NDP are going to want to be distancing themselves from the Liberals. They don't want to be in any sort of crosshairs at all here. So it's going to really put it down to Elizabeth May and the NDP. And the Greens lost a whole bunch of support in the last election to the Liberals as well.
Well, they lost 50% of their seats.
Well, that's one way to put it. 50% of 2 is 1.
That's right.
So if they want to increase their support by the party for their party at all, they need to be kind of distancing themselves and distinguishing themselves between the Liberals as well. So it's a very strategic play. It's unfortunate because we wanted to see Chris D'Entremont become leader of the House, but this serves to add more instability to the House, and that's the game. That's the game that it looks like the Conservatives are playing. So right on day one, they're not playing around. They are making sure that they are conducting every single move that they have very strategically. Now, this doesn't mean that Chris D'Entremont won't be able to be deputy speaker and continue to serve in that role, which I expect he probably will. And John Nader may do the same. We will see. But this seems to be why the Conservatives actually withdrew their candidates for to be Speaker of the House here, because they want to retain their votes and they want to make sure that the Liberals are down 1.
Pursuant to Standing Order 3.1, the House must proceed to the speech from each candidate for the speakership. Notwithstanding any standing order or any usual procedure and practice adopted by the House, Et pour aider les nouveaux députés à identifier les candidats à la présidence, je vais reconnaître en ordre alphabétique chaque candidat par son nom et par le nom de sa circonscription. When the last candidate to address the House completes his or her speech, I will leave the chair for 30 minutes, after which numbers will proceed to the election of the Speaker. Each number have 5 minutes for the speech.
Okay, so now we are at the point where we see who the candidates are. So you have Sean Casey, which is interesting because he was one of the people opposing Justin Trudeau in the Rebel caucus last year. You have Alexandra Mendez. She was Deputy Speaker in the last Parliament. You may recall her.
Assistant
Deputy Speaker, my apologies. And you have Greg Fergus, you have Sherry Ramondo, you have Frank Scarpellegia, and
Robert
Oliphant. So all Liberals. So I wonder who's going to be Speaker, because we don't know at this point in the recording. But the one thing that is interesting too, if we go back to the Conservatives withdrawing their two candidates, it is in their best interest to partner with the Bloc and the NDP to decide who that speaker is going to be.
Right.
So they don't want Greg Fergus again.
I don't think anybody wants Greg Fergus again. I think the best bet on there is going to be Madame Mendez, because she has the experience. And you can say, well, Fergus was speaker. He clearly has the experience. He wasn't a very good speaker, right?
He almost got kicked out.
He ran afoul of the rules several times. I think it was up to 4 or 5 by my count. So I think you would want somebody like Mendez, who, as assistant deputy speaker, she has the experience. She knows how to be impartial. And I'd say she's done a fair job of it.
Yeah. Was she perfect? No. But I think of that group, to Tanya's point, she's the only one with real experience, and she did a serviceable job. So I don't think that there's going to be a lot of debate on that. And plus, who knows, the Liberals may want Greg Fergus again. And we saw there was friction between Fergus, the NDP, the Bloc, and the Conservatives in the last Parliament. So that's going to be our bet at this point. And we'll see if that's what happens. Now, what we're not going to show you is each candidate has 5 minutes to essentially state their case as to why they should be Speaker. And it's funny because Greg Fergus got up and said, "Oh, I have experience. I've grown into the role." Yeah, sure you have.
Maybe he's grown into the paycheck, because the speaker gets a 50% pay increase compared to backbench MPs.
And you get a car, and you get a
office,
and a residence, and there's diplomatic responsibilities that go with it as well.
There's a lot of perks to being speaker.
So, anyway, so you'll see here that the different candidates are going through their speeches, stating their case, and then we move on to the next part of the ceremony. Here, the speeches have finished, and Mr. Palmelam is advising the table to get the ballot box ready. This is secret ballot, and everyone has to write the name, a ranked list of who they want from most preferred to least preferred, and then that ballot goes into the ballot box, and they count all 343 ballots, and then they go through. So at that point, you have the table tallying all the votes. Now, it's not just a who has the most votes. It's someone needs to have the majority of the votes in the House, and if they don't, then they continue down the ranked list. So you may have Mendez at number 1, and then on a bunch of ballots, and then a bunch of people had Mendez as number 2. So if they have to go to the second rank, then they will, in order to determine who has the full confidence of the House as the Speaker. And
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that the speaker gets more than 50% of the votes. So they will start eliminating people who have the fewest votes if it's not decided in the first round or the second round or the third round. They'll keep doing rounds of voting until the speaker receives more than 50% of the votes in the House.
Now here you can see the MPs, it's part socializing, part waiting to actually fill out their ballots in those cubicles at that point, and then they move to actually drop their ballots in the box at the end of the table. There you can see Larry Brock just dropping his in there, as well as some of the other colleagues there. So this goes on for about an hour, folks. It takes a while for all 343 MPs to actually cast their vote. And then after that is done, then we go to the tallying of the votes, which happens behind the scenes. Behind the scenes meaning behind the camera. And then we see the announcement.
And you can see the young people standing there with their backs against the front row of desks. They're dressed all in black suits. Those are the pages.
So they're there to assist the MPs if they have any questions or if they have any problems, if their pen doesn't work, whatever the case might be.
Before announcing the name of the successful candidate, I wish to explain how the next few minutes will unfold. Une fois le résultat déjà annoncé.
So what Monsieur Plamondon is explaining here is why the speaker is dragged to his seat in the House of Commons. Now, this is an artifact that is kind of left over from the historical days where the speaker was the people's representative in the House of Commons. I mean, he still is. And the speaker's job was to go tell the king what the people wanted. And sometimes the king did not like what the speaker had to say. So let's just say the king would make the speaker a head shorter.
He'd chop off his head if he wasn't too happy with what the speaker had to say.
Right. So being speaker in the old days was not this prestigious job. It was not a safe job either. And many people who were elected as the speaker did not want to be the speaker because of the occupational hazard that it could present. So the leader of the government, so the prime minister, and the leader of the opposition would drag the speaker to his seat.
And this is why the tradition continues to hold, where you actually have to opt out of being the Speaker of the House, because it wasn't a job that anyone typically wanted back then. So if you were Bob and Bob just didn't show up to work that day and they were electing the Speaker and everyone opted out, Bob didn't opt out because Bob didn't declare he was opted out. They would literally send people to Bob's house to drag him to Parliament and say, "Hi, Bob, guess what? You didn't show up for work, so you're the Speaker now." And he would say, No, I don't want to be the Speaker. And they would drag him all the way up and sit his butt on the throne there, so that he was going to be the guy that would have to bring any bad news to the king. So it's interesting that these traditions are still here. They have some fun with it now. They pretend to resist, and it's a good bit of fun, and it's kind of nice to see that it's not taken so seriously in Parliament. So.
Well, and it's neat to know the history behind these traditions that we have in our House of Commons.
It is my duty in inform the House that the honorable member for, il est maintenant de mon devoir d'informer la Chambre que l'honorable député de Lac-Saint-Louis
And there they go, dragging him up, and he's pretending to resist. So it's kind of a bit of fun. But the question is why Francis Scarpaleggia? Now, from what we've seen, he has been a member of Parliament since 2004, folks. So he's been a long-time member. He's been around the block. He's actually known for being very fair, very nonpartisan. He's chaired multiple committees. If you recall what we've said before, a lot of times running for Speaker of the House, you have to have demonstrated you've gone through some sort of training, you've gone through some sort of experience, and one of the ways to do that is to serve as chair of committees, because as chair, you're supposed to chair those committees with a nonpartisan approach in order to be fair to all committee members. So he's done that on many occasions. And he's also built many relationships on all sides of the aisle between all the parties. And it's evident that Parliament wanted some stability in the Speaker's role at this point. They want someone that they trust is going to be nonpartisan, who's not going to be the story of Parliament like Greg Fergus was. So it makes you wonder, were the Liberals all voting for Greg Fergus? And did all the opposition parties team up and vote for Scarpaleggia? We won't know that. But what we do know is that Mendes was passed over, Fergus was passed over, and they went to, sorry Carney, but an old white man. And this is what Justin Trudeau and the previous Liberal Party was complaining about for 10 years. All the bad people in this country are allegedly old white men. But now you have an old white man as a prime minister and you have an old white man as the Speaker of the House. So I'm not sure what you make of that. But
you know what I make of that, at least what I hope, is that this woke culture is finally starting to die out. But that remains to be seen.
Well, and it's not just the fact that they're that you have old white men here. What Tanya's talking about is, it seems like for the Speaker, they went with someone that everybody trusts is going to be completely nonpartisan and reduce the temperature in the House of Commons. So
that's what Canadians need.
Yeah.
I mean, you can argue that, sure, it's entertaining to have the different parties going at each other's throats, but to really get work done for Canadians, we need a Speaker who is fair and impartial and will help keep things running smoothly.
Right. So not only do we hope we have a more stable Parliament this time in terms of what's going on in the House, not only do we hope that the Conservatives aren't going to be, let's just say, overly disciplined as they seem to be under Fergus. We also have deprived the Liberals of one more voting seat by having a Liberal Speaker. So I think this was a good day for the opposition parties, not just the Conservatives, for the opposition parties. So the Liberals now are down to 168 votes because they have a Liberal Speaker. And we're going to see what happens over the course of the next week. So that's basically all that's going to be happening in Parliament today. We have a new Speaker. Now we can have Parliament. Tomorrow will be the speech from the throne. And then after that is completed, next couple of weeks is going to be debate. And then that will result in a confidence vote on the throne speech. So with that, that's it for us today. And we'll see you in the comments.